Welcome to Not Strong. This is a podcast for men about empowering the human spirit. What do you do when the things you relied upon quit working? When your physical and emotional strengths are put to the test? Do you push through, hold on even tighter, or have you learned how to surrender? And what does that look like? We're here to explore the human spirit, tapping into something bigger than ourselves, living a happier, healthier, more fulfilling life. Thanks for joining us on the Not Strong journey. Welcome to Not Strong, Empowering the Human Spirit. My name's Kurtis Loftus, joined by
Jeremiah Stanley.
So we are going to be partnering from here on out until Jeremiah doesn't want to do this anymore. Not Strong, Empowering the Human Spirit. And this is our second season, our sixth episode. I'm going to actually announce what we're talking about in a moment. But first, I've done this with a gentleman named Tim Hamby. We spent about a year together, and that was an extraordinary experience. We covered all things human spirit. Both of us, senior citizens, almost. Tim and I we're in our 60s, and we both have lived wonderful lives. And he and I experienced cancer about the same time. Mine prostate, his was a colon rectal. It was a crazy one, and he passed December of this year. So there was a lot of conversation. Do we keep the podcast going? And his wife, Tim's wife, with all the equipment at their house, she was like, Tim definitely wanted this thing to continue. Had conversations with different men, different topics. You've been with me now. This is our third episode together.
It is.
Yeah. And Jeremiah, you're a pastor at a Christian church.
Yes.
Mandarin.
Yeah, right here in Mandarin, Trinity Mandarin, or on the corner of San Jose and Orange Picker Road.
Yeah, and when we talk, and I just have to say this because my wife and I were talking earlier about this ageism thing. She was like, I made a joke. I think I could go, be what did I tell her? I wanted to be a telehandler operator, like heavy equipment.
Oh, right.
And she was like, do you think they'd hire you? And I'm like, is that an age question? And I'm like, stop that. It's getting funny because, you and I sit together, and I mentioned it the last time, you could be my son.
Yes.
Yeah. And that just blows my mind that I'm able to, hang out, have conversations. Not that it's impossible to be like-minded or, feel like you're mutual, like a peer group for me now is mind-blowing because I keep getting older, but I don't.
You don't feel that?
I don't. I'm like, dude, I feel like we should be hanging out all the time and, naturally in a real similar peer group.
Right.
But I'm like 20 years different.
Yeah.
So anyway, but you're much wiser, I'm sure, in these areas of what are the human spirit, certainly the divine spirit. I may give myself some credit,
you got to give yourself some credit there.
Some credit for the human spirit side of it. You spend enough time on this planet, and
you learn a few things,
good or bad. And I'm doing mic checks right now, making sure I keep myself close. But we did run this thing just briefly to make sure everything's working. So it's working. Yeah. It's working well. So you ready for the topic?
I'm ready.
It's love thy enemy. And it's a command that Jesus gave, what could really blow your mind, knowing that at that point in time when Jesus was alive, he had enemies all over the place.
Absolutely.
And if you pick up any of the baby crying, there's a baby crying by, we're not stopping.
It's all good.
We're going to let that be a part of it. Yeah. Oh, and I didn't even ask you. I was going to ask about Easter, so we're going to reverse. Sorry. How was Easter?
Easter was a really great day at our church. So great attendance, just a great spirit in the room. I mean, it's hard to have a bad day when you're celebrating the resurrection, but just a powerful opportunity for us as a church, and enjoyed it.
How many Easters have you presided over?
So I've only been at this church this is my third year to be there for Easter, but but I've been in church ministry, church world for over 20 years now. So
Easter messages, which obviously are big, you've probably done, what do you guess? in Easter messages?
In Easter messages, maybe a half dozen Easter messages now. Yeah, right. That's the big joke we always have. Is like, well, what should we speak on for Easter Sunday? Why don't we speak on the resurrection? Maybe
the resurrection. Yeah, and that was good. We talked about the resurrection. We talked about what we called order, disorder, reorder. Correct. And we framed that, made that part of the resurrection story.
Right.
Which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, it worked.
One more thing. Family, are they good?
Yeah. Family is doing well. So our middle son, Braden, he is about to graduate from high school in about a month. So that's kind of the big thing at our house right now, preparing for that.
And how many kids?
So 3 boys. Yeah. So we have our oldest will be 22 in August, and then our middle son is a senior. He's 19. Will be 19 in June, and then our baby boy, he just turned 16.
Wow. So yeah, I only had girls, my friend, and there are people that I think raising girls as a man is huge in your own personal development. I
would imagine.
Yeah. You know, boys seems. I'm just don't pick on me, guys. Whoever's out there listening. I mean, if I imagine raising sons, it would be and not. I loved everything about raising my daughters.
Sure.
But I would just go, man, sons would be pretty cool. It'd be kind of easy. But as I hear some of your descriptions, because we do a Bible study together,
right?
And you're in the mess of a boy, coming.
They have their own sets of challenges.
Dude, and then you start thinking about yourself as a boy, and you're like, no, I wouldn't want me.
Well, the goal was to get
wouldn't want me around at all.
Independence, but then you're in that little struggle between. Okay, they're not quite there yet, but they want to be there, and you want them to be there. And it's interesting. Yeah,
and it's the other. It's not like you're dealing with anything. Everyone goes through. Every parent, every dad goes through it. But you're probably addressing things again as a spirit-oriented, as a Christian man that has a hope.
Right.
That is, how do I frame this, God, so that I don't expect too much, ask too much.
Correct.
But my hope, my heart, is so rooted in their success and their.
Well, I think a lot of where I tend to find myself thinking is about the future, not so much about the immediate. So I don't want to just have a system or structure that's good for today, but it's not preparing them for the future. So I think a lot about that.
Good for you. Oh, one more thing I have to do with this podcast. Not breathe into this mic.
Oh.
I was breathing heavy. Both the girls were like, Dad, you are breathing heavy.
Taking up that breathing.
Yeah, but I'm also at least not, they can hear me. That's good.
True.
Here we are. So, love thy enemy. Too many things to really square up. How do I start? Where are we going to go? So like always, I'm just going to go. We're just going to go. But here it is. First, we got to understand love before we go anywhere.
Okay.
And I know the 4 because I've just looked them back up. But from a biblical standpoint, can you give me the 4?
So
4 forms of love, I guess.
So in the Greek language, they had multiple words for love. So in English, we just have one word, love. But in the Greek language, there were multiple words. So agape,
which is
agape is like the true.
You got my cheat notes.
The true sacrificial kind of love.
Selfless.
Selfless, exactly. Agape. Storge, I don't recall. I know there's like an eros, which is like a.
Storge would be the way they describe it is a natural family affection.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. And then you have your like. Romantic, erotic,
eros, and that's that passionate.
And then there's romantic. The phileo, which is more of like a friend, I think, a friendship,
brotherly, deep friendship.
Yeah.
So, and that's crazy that God gives us 4 different ways to love.
Right. Well, and you think about our word love in English. It really encompasses. You have to know context, right? So if I said, "Hey, I love you, Kurtis," and then I go home to my wife tonight and say, "I love you," it's the same word, but different things wrapped up in that, right?
Yeah, but again, making it that complicated. It's like there's as a man, as a dude, it takes me I wouldn't care about any of those 4 versions of love as a 20-year-old.
Yep.
Just give me Eros and I'd be fine.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's basically it, right?
Yeah, we tend to think of love as just, in that particular category, especially thinking toward like we think of love as like, what do I get out of this?
Yeah.
Not out of, hey, what can I sacrifice?
The agape love is something and that's kind of what's going to happen today. We're going to be talking about what is essentially agape love, sacrificial love, and why that's important. In fact, the most important thing that happens for us is coming to not just the realization of what we're granted, what we're capable of doing, in this lifetime, but not doing it. You can't do it selfishly.
Sure.
That's it. I mean, that's the point of it. It is absolutely the other end of the spectrum when it comes to behavior, when it comes to how you think. It is like you are giving up ego. You're giving up a lot of things to make for that to work properly.
Right.
So that's this love thy enemy thing.
Yeah.
Really is built around agape love.
Yes.
But you've got to sort of understand even brotherly love. I mean, because I think that's kind of a love that people can accept a little better.
Sure.
Men especially.
Right.
Yeah,
they understand the idea of a brotherhood.
They'll go out and fight, but they'll die for their brother too. Sure. So, there's some agape there.
Yeah.
All right. So that up against the animal kingdom makes us really unique, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, you can't find that sacrificial love anywhere else.
Right.
It's uniquely, divinely inspired, given to us.
Sure.
So I say here, it's funny. This is my spoiler alert. The ego will be crushed through this conversation, right?
Yeah.
This is back to...
Well, in order to model this properly, yes, that's where we're headed. Right.
I got into this thing from a research standpoint, even is like, why did God create ego? Why do we have egos? I mean, because it seems like the one powerful thing that gets in our way is this ego, which is actually a good thing.
Right.
Just can't make it a bad thing.
Well, I know for me, when I think about ego, so the good part of our ego is like our self-reliance, our self-dependence. It's that autonomy of like, hey, I'm going to take responsibility and manage my life. And that's the good part. The bad part is when we think that we're going to be able to do that independently of any source or any acknowledgement that there's a power outside of us. And so the proper balance of our ego is to say, I can stand alone as a man because of who I am in my creator, recognizing the proper order of that, that I'm dependent upon him. When I get to the place of thinking that I'm completely independent of anything and self-functioning and autonomous with no authority, no accountability, like that's the danger part of ego when it begins to get to that place.
Right. But that natural progression, I'm just going to carry this another step. See how we're already on a rabbit hole?
We're already
goodness. If ego is sort of helping lead you forward.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Unchecked, to your point, is the danger. But I got to tell you how it's checked, when it gets checked, how surrender comes about, how you let go of some of this stuff. If it's not practiced, like so I guess my point is it's a little more natural to let the ego grow.
Yes.
And
well, so Stephen, sorry.
Go for it. No, you're not.
Stephen Covey, he talks a lot. You're familiar with the 7 habits. Yeah. So he talks about it in relationship to we want to move to independence first. So we need to be in other words, there is a positive aspect of this in which I need to be independent, self-sufficient. I'm not relying upon my parents like I did when I was, in middle school. I'm taking responsibility, but the danger is that we stop there, that we just get to independence and that's it. But he says, no, the next level from that is interdependent. So you become an independent person, I become an independent person, and we can either just say, hey, we're independent and we don't need each other and we're going to have this, or we can say, hey, you know what? We're both independent. So now let's move to this interdependence where we can help each other.
Yeah.
I have strengths that you don't have. You have strengths that I don't have.
I get
we're going to be better together. But it's not the danger side of it or the unhealthy side of it where I am somehow relying on you for things that I should be doing for myself. So we're stronger together, but it starts with independence.
Yeah. But again, not an easy thing to accomplish at all.
Extremely difficult.
And if you find successes in your own dependence, unfortunately, again, that can work really. Right, it can work against you in so many ways that by the time, and especially if it's a practice, right?
Sure.
So by the time you're in your mid-50s, which I kind of shared quickly with you this morning, changing up something as a man in your 50s, it could be how you love someone, it could be how you share, it could be how just being vulnerable is almost impossible if you've never been that way.
Right.
And so starting to accept and adjust and make yourself open to these practices of just vulnerability sucks.
Yep.
You can't, it's just hard to do. But I was going to say to you, that's where this other idea happens. It's not an idea, but when you start holding on to this kind of this identity thing that is without others involved, without that relational thing, higher power than this outward thing. You start to hate yourself. I mean, you can. So I do want to make sure we brush on the enemy within as well.
Okay.
So you got this whole thing going on externally,
right?
But then I also think
there's an internal enemy.
This internal enemy also is there, whether it comes about and it's always been. It's hard to say, but that's it. So the other beautiful thing about the Jesus piece is he really, and correct me if I'm wrong, but he really essentially wiped out the 10 commandments in a way and just said, you have 2 commandments. He commanded us.
Love the Lord with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength.
Yep.
And then, love your neighbor as yourself. Yeah. Well, so the way he framed this up is he said, really, you could take all of the 10 commandments and you could encapsulate them into these 2. So at their root or at their heart, they really speak to these 2.
Yeah. Well, and you have to imagine if your actions, if your energies are directed with those 2 main commandments, all the other stuff pretty much
exactly, because that's really when you divide up the original 10, they speak to our relationship with God and our relationship with other people. And so this is just a summary of those 10 and putting it into those 2 for us to remember.
And the other thing, this is kind of part of recovery, which I've never been shy about talking about some of the recovery work I've done, is when we're in the early stages of the work, about, just who you are as a human and why you carry resentments or what is the problem with loving, someone that used to really be an enemy, a problem, at least in your mind. And there was justifiable anger here. So you have every right to have this hatred or whatever it is, right? So these things have to be addressed in which is the beauty of recovery. You think you're going in there to kind of solve your drinking problem, but the truth is you're going in there to solve this heart problem.
Right.
And the symptom, these symptoms are addressed, and it's point is, I feel like in that step work, you get to this inventory sort of work. And in that inventory work, what they identify or what you should be identifying, the way it's set up, the template of it to do the inventory work, is it's not just people, places, but it's institutions and things. And we often don't think about all the different reasons we struggle in our life. And institutions can even include a church. Sometimes.
Things that should help us that fail us or let us down or contribute to the situation we find ourselves in.
So, So this is like, whole litany of things where Jesus makes this command, love thy enemy. Yeah. And then I'd like to look at it like, man, this is a spiritual problem.
Yeah.
It really is a spiritual issue.
Sure.
Whether this is in order or out of order, forgiveness is huge.
Mm-hmm. Well, because it's fundamental to loving your enemy. So the way that's actually going to look is to love them. It almost requires a forgiveness element or component to it to begin with, because I can't truly love someone if you have wronged me in some way and I consider you to be an enemy of me. Well, there's a reason for that. You've done something, you've said something. And so in order for me to respond to you in love instead of what is natural, which is hate or animosity or some type of, I'm going to get even, I'm going to bring justice to this. In order for me to respond with love, it requires, first of all, that I forgive you. And so the way we view this from a biblical perspective is that the only way it's possible for me to forgive my enemy is if I understand that I have already been forgiven. So it's a mindset that has to shift to understand that no, the biggest enemy is me. I was an enemy of God. I was pursuing life on my own, independent of my Creator. And before I even recognized and was aware of that, He went on a mission of forgiveness for me. Mm-hmm. And that was by sending Jesus, to the cross to take on, my sin, to take on the punishment that should have been mine. So when I understand the picture of that, and so as a follower of Jesus, and that's who He's addressing here in the Sermon on the Mount, when He says, love your enemies, He's speaking to His followers. And so if I understand that I have already been forgiven, it's from that forgiveness that I find the power and the ability to forgive someone who has offended and wronged me. So that's where it comes from. But then also it's recognizing that in Jesus, those wrongs are going to be righted. In other words, we come into a situation where we've been hurt and we think, I have to correct that. I have to seek the justification of that. And the reality is, maybe there's a way to do that. Maybe there's not a way to do that. But regardless of what happens with the outcome of those things, I'm going to entrust that to the ultimate lawkeeper, the ultimate judge. I'm going to rest in His ability to right those wrongs and release that from my own feeling of like, I've got to be the one to do this.
When you're struggling with, because the ego, we're going to get right back to that identity, that protecting self.
Sure.
When you're struggling with an issue that involves a wrong, mm-hmm. and this thing seems so big, so like important, meaningful, justify. Mm-hmm. Your anger is justifiable.
Yeah.
How do you have recommendations? Are there pathways? Because first you have to address it and see it, mm-hmm. and then honestly, internalize. Like you have to somehow accept and understand it for all of its complexity.
Right.
But then be able to go, I can release this.
Yeah.
Is that just because I asked about this also this morning. You don't want to fake this thing. You can't. Mm-hmm. You can't just pretend you're getting through it.
Sure.
Is there a process? Is there?
Yeah, I think there are steps to it, and a lot of times our feelings will follow our logic, our mind, and so I think sometimes it's the beginning process of that is to understand what I'm trying to accomplish here. So I'm trying to be obedient to.
This is the logical side of you.
I think you have to start there, because if we're only going off of our feelings, we may never get there. Because I may want to forgive you, but then I wake up the next morning and I'm like, but he still did that. And so if I let my emotions drive, they're always going to probably bring me back to this roller coaster of, I may feel like I forgave you yesterday, but then today I'm back mad. So I understand the process logically that I need to forgive. And the reason for that is because I've been forgiven much. So it's like the story, the parable that Jesus told of the guy who had this massive debt, big time owed the bank, and he was forgiven, and he goes out and finds the guy who owes him a quarter and throws him in debtor's prison. So if I recognize how much I've been forgiven, then it gives me the ability. So then from there, to your point, it's this process of, even though I know that logically, I may wake up tomorrow and be like, man, but I don't feel like forgiving Kurtis. I really just still am harboring. And so it is a process I have to continue to work out and come back to the reality of the situation.
Yeah, there's a couple of scriptural things. I got this from Romans 12:17. Do not repay evil for evil,
Yep.
And then obviously there's one, Luke 6:35. Do good, expecting nothing in return.
Sure.
Forgive the Colossians, forgive as the Lord forgives you. It's all of those things, but it's so freaking hard.
It is. It
doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. And I would also say that it is impossible, to your point, without the power of the Holy Spirit. So it is a supernatural, divine thing that if left to my own strength, I'm never going to be able to get over it.
Yeah. And to the recovery stories, since I've been at it for a little while, and I pretty much go to meetings every day.
Yeah.
You see newcomers, you see old timers, you see people that have been doing this, for 20 years. They go, I mean, literally, it's something that's built into their. It's almost like working out.
Yeah.
It's
just part of the routine.
It's just part of, and it's not because they're desperate or afraid, like if they miss a meeting kind of stuff.
Right.
It is like, again, you wake up to have your spirit adjusted. Like, let me get my heart in the right place before I get out of the door or before I start my day. It's like prayers in the morning or prayers at night, And so the adjustment is critical. But what also happens is you get to see people early in their work. Yep. You get to see people desperately hanging on, and I got to tell you, dude, this is called the fourth step, where all the inventory work is done. And
it's a brutal one, I bet.
It's not.
No? Okay.
Yeah, the tougher part about this process for most people is the work does move into what are your amends.
Okay.
Yeah. So generally, you're actually making amends sometimes to people that you were sure were wronged you,
They're dead to you.
Yeah, they had nothing to do, with this. Is all on them. No part is on you. But addressing it and figuring it out, and you don't do this with everyone. There's sometimes it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It's not going to work. People don't want you in their life anymore, sometimes.
Right.
And so you don't make it harder.
Yep.
But you do start to just peel this onion back.
Sure.
And unburden yourself.
Yep.
And the freedom from that is huge in changing mindset, changing behaviors, changing everything. And, credit always to a higher power, because that's how they set this up. Yeah. Some people will go through the work and, they won't ever. I'm telling you, agnostic, atheist, anyone can go through this.
Sure. There's helpful tools and
really good. And usually all of them, which is fun, will address it in some spiritual way. I know. Isn't that interesting?
It is.
Yeah, they will say the group conscious is a spiritual thing.
Yeah.
They will say and accept that there is something greater. They just, especially the agnostic, will just be like, I don't know what to give it to.
Right.
Something.
Yeah. There's got to be something bigger than
but
us.
Just the dogmas and all this stuff when it comes to religions, it's ruined them.
Sure. Yeah, no, I get it.
But it's beautiful to see the process and to see, the freedom that is derived from someone understanding forgiveness and then moving through that.
Well, because the opposite side of that is bitterness.
Yeah, that's what you're hanging on to, this
containment in there. And so what do they say? Like bitterness is the poison that we take hoping to kill the other guy.
It's literally when you drink over it, it's like drinking rat poison while you're hoping to kill the other person.
Yeah, it just eats you from the inside out.
Richard Rohr has one where he speaks to, where is it? It's right here, Richard Rohr. Holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else.
Just hanging on.
Except you're the one that's getting burned. Yeah. So and he says also, if we do not transform our pain, we will most assuredly transmit it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have to transform it.
Yeah. So we talked about this recently.
Yeah.
That the old saying, hurt people who have been hurt, they tend to hurt others. And so we say, well, the opposite of that has to be true, that if I have sought healing, then I can have a healing effect on the people around me as well. So both of those sides have to be true. So if I'm seeking restoration and healing in my life, then the people who are connected with me and interacting with me, they can experience that healing as well.
Yeah, you're on to something, because my personal, at least, testimony is I had to really get to a place where I loved myself first.
Yeah.
You really just have to get over how much self-loathing or resentments that you have for mistakes or for behaviors, whatever, where you're just like holding those things, especially if you disappear into a world where for years you're just kind of living in this, call it the hamster wheel. You're just like, okay, I'm running in this thing and nothing is happening, doing the same. We call it sometimes crazy, It's like doing the same thing every day, hoping for something different. And but eventually it's addressing the enemy within you, and then you're capable of the love and the outward expression of his grace and mercy and all that. Paul says it too, and I know you've got one too from Romans. I do not do what I want to do, but I do the very thing I hate.
Yeah, well, I think you got to also look at this from a broader picture. That think about all of human history, all of the civilizations, whatever you view as like the beginning of humanity, from that point up until the time when Christ was here on this earth giving this sermon. Essentially, the process by which humanity operated was might makes right.
Oh yeah,
it was one kingdom, one civilization rising up, conquering another, and so this was the way of humanity.
Dude,
I'm going to get my justice.
I looked it up before before anything biblical, like Joseph was on the earth, and before we were looking at constructing this God relationship with us, right? Which happened in the Old Testament. It started there. Jesus just brought it to the finish. But we were nothing before Jesus, in terms of how we behaved, what we looked to, the gods that existed. All the Greek ideas of God and worship and all that were totally away from this.
All power driven, authority driven, control driven.
Nothing sacrificial.
Correct.
Not in this regard, where that power is love, given, imparted or whatever, shared.
Right. Yeah. So this was a countercultural concept, and so for us today, maybe we understand it, we're familiar with it, but this was brand new on the scene of humanity. And so from that, really until today, we see even the civilization that we enjoy in the West, it's largely built on this concept of sacrificial love, and it's revolutionary in terms of our thinking of how humanity has functioned.
Well, it is, absolutely, but we still mess it up.
Oh, every day.
I mean, and sometimes like you scratch your head and go, are we better or worse? What would you say? That's kind of an offhanded question. What do you think's going on? I'm sure it's been asked.
I mean, I think you have to say better. I mean, even though, yes, we don't see this perfectly carried out, but I think just ask yourself a few questions. Would you rather be alive, today, or go back to the time of the Romans and the Greeks and the Vikings? And I mean, I think as history has progressed, there is a point in which you look at it and say, there is progress. There's good that's happening. Now, it's a mixed bag because we still live under a curse. We still have, sin is still part of our lives, and so there is a mixture of this. But we see the goodness shining through even in spite of that.
Got one for you.
Yeah.
So, and I mentioned this dualistic behavior.
Okay.
Which is kind of a natural, instinctual way.
Sure.
It's set based on our ego. I think a lot of it is, fear oriented or protection.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
We don't pause well, do we? We don't really have a good system like
a filter.
Yeah, it's and is there some practices or some understanding that someone could? Is there a takeaway there from? Here's how I recommend, Kurtis. You take a pause when things are elevating. When you're getting into that, I'm going to judgment. I'm going to judge. I'm going to react. I'm going to and that's a kind of I'm that way. I've been that way. I'm a very quick to react kind of person. And I used to think I used to think it was to my. Maybe it was a benefit. Maybe it was one of my strengths. It turns out it was probably a weakness. Just react. Yeah. I mean, in some cases, yes. Quickly understanding and negotiating and trying to get to a solution, make something right.
That's a different story. Yeah.
But this other thing that has to do with your internal your spirit your God,
yeah. Well, so. One of our boys, when he was younger, he had a quick temper. He struggled with that, and so spent years just kind of coaching him through and working with him on that. And I'd always take him back to the proverb that says, like, a man that has no rule over his spirit, it's like a city that has no walls. There's no fortification. There's no protection. So basically, anyone can come in and just start messing, and immediately, like, you have no ability to control yourself at all. You just you blow up, you mouth off, whatever. And so it's a lack of control. It's a lack of discipline and response. And so sometimes, to your point, the right response is a righteous indignation or whatever. But I want to know why I'm doing that and have the rationale behind that before I just react. Instead of respond.
Right.
So I want to respond rather than react. And so. Going back to that analogy, it's like I want to have high walls so that that gives not just protection from the outside, but also protection from the inside. That I don't want every feeling and emotion that I have to be so raw that it's felt immediately. I want to have a high wall of self-control to where both I have protection from the outside and so that my raw emotions don't just immediately spill over into the life of someone that has wronged me.
So... but you have to be intentional.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And you have to build that discipline.
Yeah.
So
because that's not a natural, that's not a natural thing either.
No, for sure. So some just practical things is like breathe.
That's a great one.
Yeah. Something happens and you feel that, rising up, you know what it is. Yeah. It's like, just mentally coach yourself to like, hey,
how do you do that in a car on I-95, dude?
A lot of breathing. A lot of breathing. And then Jesus also said, not just love your enemies, but pray for them.
Would Jesus be a good driver? Of course.
Of course. But yeah, I mean, he's divine too.
That's a crazy
but he said, pray for
He'd be
those.
Walking on the side.
That's right. Yeah.
He'd be like, dude, this. And they'd be like, you need a ride? And he'd be like, brother, I'm fine.
Yeah. I'll get there.
I'll get there.
Yeah. There's a reason that he came to this earth in the time that he did before vehicles, right? But he said, pray for those who despitefully use you, who take advantage of you. Mm-hmm. And so I think prayer is another thing. Before I respond to someone, I'm going to say, take a moment. Jesus, that person is made in your image and I may not love them right now, but you love them. And so help me love them like you do.
And he did love even the persecutors, right?
I mean, look at how he treated Judas. I mean, loved him to the end when he knew he was going to betray him. Ugh. So look at what he did for Peter. Peter said, Jesus, I'll never deny you. And then he says, oh no, you're going to. But after the resurrection, we see him going out of his way. Hey, tell the other disciples that I'm alive and tell Peter, like calls him out by name. And then of course we know that exchange on the beach after the resurrection where he's asking Peter, do you love me? And like gives Peter the chance 3 times to reaffirm the love. I mean, that's powerful. That's so powerful.
It's impossible.
It is.
My goodness. So here's a couple more. This is a cool one. Whoever loses his life will find it.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just reading through some of my notes and finding little highlights here and there. Whoever loses his life will find it. And
yeah, well, and losing it, when Jesus is giving that specific teaching there, he's saying, lose it for my sake. Like, in other words, it's not just losing it as in, hey, I'm going to go out here and have no purpose and just wander aimlessly. This is not some kind of like philosophical teaching that's supposed to just give us something to think about for a long time. Like, he's saying, if you will give up control of your life and let me have control of it, like do my will as I did the Father's will, that's how you're going to find the purpose you're looking for. So I think a lot of times the foundation for our anger and our looking to have things justified is because we see ourselves as the one in control. We have this view of like, I want these things to be done in this way. And so when I am willing to surrender my life to say, God, you see the wrong that was done to me. You see this, like this is something that you know of. And instead of me trying to correct it, I'm going to turn it over to you and trust that you will not let it go undone. Even though it may not be in my timing, it may not be when I want to have it justified.
Right.
I'm going to relinquish the control of that to the fact that you will make these things right.
Right. Yeah. Right. And that means, which we've already stated a few times, by letting go, surrendering. And truly, I say, I don't know if we spend enough time on that, being honest in the assessment, the evaluation of yourself.
Yeah.
Like to go deeply into your heart and say, have I really truly let this go?
Right. Yeah. And I know that the biggest pushback to this, typically as humans, is it's this thing of like, well, but if I do that, then I just become a doormat. I can never defend myself. I can never. That's not true. And like, no, I want to make sure we point that out and draw that out. They're like, no, that's not what we're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're not even talking about, oh, now you got to go befriend your enemy.
No.
So
I don't continue to let them.
No. Yeah. It's like,
take advantage.
It's really like being in a prison. Mm-hmm. You got to wonder half those stories, even with some of Paul's stories. Was he really truly in a prison, or was he? He was.
Yeah,
but the way he handled prison, was exactly the way you handle life.
Just real life.
Yeah. So as a metaphor, right?
Yeah.
You're like, oh, Paul's in prison and he's singing.
Right.
And you're like, dude, and everyone else around him is going,
how is that possible?
Yeah, and the guards are like, dude, would you stop?
Yeah, like you're a lunatic.
No, I'll just keep singing. I'll be fine. And he drives them nuts.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, there's something interesting about that guy. So, the beauty of some of those stories is, the freedom that comes from letting that stuff go.
Right. That doesn't mean that I don't.
Yeah.
I've talked about this book before, but Dr. Henry Cloud wrote a book called Boundaries.
Okay, yeah.
And so he's saying, look, just because I forgive you doesn't mean that I continue to let you take advantage of my situation, or I continue to just allow bad behavior. No, I can forgive, but still set up boundaries of protection that are necessary. So it's mainly about letting go of what I harbor in my heart.
We've almost come to a close, but I'm not going to let this close without. This is my surprise question.
Okay.
Maybe it's not a question. It's a statement of sorts. Grace is super big in all of this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if we could do something to wrap it up into a little bow for this understanding of loving the enemy.
Yeah.
And how some of this adjusting goes on in a life, and then where we get to at the end of all of it. Can we not talk grace a little bit in this?
I think you have to.
You have to.
I think it's essential to the conversation.
Yeah. So you have a way to, and we didn't pray. So as
I know that was my,
but it's okay. What we'll do is we'll take what would be, and I'm not. Poor Jeremiah. We'll do this 2 or 3 times. You feel like you're hitting it pretty good. So I don't think we're going to have to stop recording. But if you could wrap it up in this understanding of grace, his grace, our grace. Yeah. And I think that would be our prayer as well, because it's a big deal. Love, as I said, the command that Jesus had for us, I think it's just, it's the most important thing we do on this world.
Yeah.
And figuring that out. What does it mean? What does it mean? How does it work?
Right. So the story that always comes to my mind when I think of grace is this Old Testament story. So, the life of David in the Old Testament. David was like this messianic type, like a prototype. I mean, he was just a human guy, but he had aspects of his life that kind of pointed and mirrored toward the better, Jesus, the true Messiah that would come. And so there's this amazing story in the life of David where he takes over the throne. And, of course, he had befriended Jonathan, who was the son of Saul, who was the previous king. And so after Jonathan and Saul are dead, he asked, is anybody alive from their family? And of course, we know how this goes. In this period of time, it's like, if you were a descendant in the line of the king, your life was in danger because there was this, we don't want any uprising. We don't want somebody to usurp, the authority here. And so there's this search for any descendants. And of course, we know the story that in the fall of the city, they were grabbing, Jonathan's son and taking him away. And the nurse, in doing so, fell and she tripped. And the result of that was that Mephibosheth, the boy, his legs are broken, so he's left lame. And so David learns that he's alive, brings him back to the palace, and says, hey, from now on, you're going to have your dinners right here with my family. Even though you're a part of the line of Saul, even though you represent this other kingdom that I have now replaced, I'm going to show grace to you. I'm going to show favor to you. And the reason that story is in the Old Testament is so that when we read it, we connect the dots to that's what happened to us. We are Mephibosheth. We are the ones that deserve death, that should have been put away, and yet God has invited us and given us a seat at the table that we did not deserve. So when we talk about grace, it's undeserved favor. It's favor that we didn't deserve, and yet God was so gracious. And when you understand that,
there was a lot of grace, in David's life.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it was all over the place. You don't.
Yeah, the way that,
his whole
decisions he made, and
well, he was on the run too, wasn't he?
Well, the biggest way that grace was shown to him, he was on the run from Saul.
Yeah.
Saul was trying to kill
he was
him
hiding out, wasn't he?
times.
Hiding out in caves and stuff.
Hiding out in caves, absolutely, yeah.
I mean, he was in a mess of a place.
Correct, exactly, yeah. So God's grace was very evident in his life as well. Yeah.
It's a mystery.
It is. It really is. Yeah. But when we understand grace, that's where we find the power to live out the command that Jesus gave.
Love thy enemy. I hope we got enough done. How do you feel about it? Anything I missed?
Good. I think we hit
enough of it.
All the major points.
Does it make enough sense to some folks that it's about freedom?
I think so.
It's about I always love to say it's there are always opportunities out there in the world, especially for all of us, where people are paying attention, watching us in our lives, and they will say, "Gosh, you know what? There's something about that guy.
Yeah,
there's something kind of cool."
Yeah, when we live in freedom, man, it's evident. It shows.
Yeah, and you can't have that with hate, anger. You can't have that when you're holding on to some, these resentments.
Well, it's all that stuff on the inside leaks out. It leaks out in our friendships, in our marriages, our homes, our relationships. So whatever you're carrying around on the inside, it's going to slosh over.
Love thy enemy, inside and out.
That's it.
And Jesus, amen. Jeremiah, thank you so much for today.
Honored to be a part of it.
We didn't do too bad. It's about an hour again. We'll figure out. I'll clean up my ramblings.
It's all good.
Love you, brother.
Love you too.
Thank you for joining us. This is Not Strong. Empowering the human spirit. We will return hopefully in a month. That's our goal, right? Once a month?
Cool. Yeah, once a month.
We'll see you guys.